How's everyone doing today? I am Michael Gibbons, the MGExperience.com, Twitter, Chicago fan, DA Chicago fan, doing my latest book review of Raising Lombardi, which has absolutely nothing to do with Vince Lombardi whatsoever. It's not about Vince Lombardi growing up or his coaching career or anything. It has everything to do with the NFL championship and what it took for certain players to accomplish that goal, teams to do that, what were turning points, things like that. And it's basically the whole book, besides a few pages here or there, were quotes, completely unedited, right from the player's mouth. So, to be honest, I'd love Ross Bernstein's job because literally, he probably wrote about 10 pages worth of a book and just talked to guys the rest of the time and quoted them. He basically starts off each chapter with about a paragraph and then just quotes the rest of the way. So it's an interesting book. It's not something you have to read every single quote of. You can skim through and take pieces here or there. Oh, wow, I want to hear what Bill Romanowski has to say about the turning. What was the turning point of that season? Or Mike Ditka talking about what it took to win it as a player and what it took to win it as a coach, and then hearing his players talk about it, and the great Bill Walsh, and it's all different types of guys. You have kickers, you have assistant coaches, you have head coaches, you have star players, you have middle of the road offensive linemen. It's just everybody, guys who went out on top, went to one Super Bowl, won it, were done. Guys who've been to a couple and lost, like John Elway's there. Michael Strahan wrote one of the intros along with Moose Johnson. Strahan was very interesting. He kept referencing how he was even thinking about announcing on the podium that he was going to retire. So he was already thinking about that. What if they won before the game? Am I going to retire? Just think, you're playing the biggest game of your career, and you're thinking that it could be your last already. And he referenced how Jerome Bettis did the same thing and how that weighed heavily on him. So it's a very interesting book, and like I said, you don't have to read every single quote because some of them are very short. Some of them are literally a couple sentences. Others are a couple pages. But there is a general theme throughout it all, and maybe that's because of the questions he asked. He asked very simple questions. What did winning a Super Bowl mean to you? Why did this team win? What was the turning point? What brought this team together? What made it possible? And Drew Brees, the turning point was the onside kick in the Super Bowl. All the 85 Bears said that loss to Miami. And Ditka said it was that loss to Miami that helped turn them around. Singletary kind of took a different spin and said it was going to do the Super Bowl shuffle the next day after losing to Miami. That's what brought that team together. That's what woke them up. So it's very interesting how, two members of the coaching staff and the players, both view the same instance, same thing as possibly a turning point, but in two completely different ways. A couple teams that were not represented. I'm very surprised that Baltimore Ravens team with Ray Lewis and all those guys that were on that tough-nosed defense, I don't recall coming across any of the quotes. Maybe I missed it. Another team that was very underrepresented was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers championship team. Besides a little thing from John Gruden that I read, I didn't see Warren Sapp or John Lynch or Hardy Nickerson or Mike Allstott, Warwick Dunn. Trent Dilfer, nothing. So I was kind of surprised with those two. A lot of other teams were very well represented. Obviously, those 49ers teams had a lot of guys to pick from. And then you have someone like Romanowski, who was not only on the 49ers, he was also part of those Broncos teams. So it's a very interesting book. Again, a nice, easy read because you're going to find yourself, you're not reading you're reading the same thing over and over again because it's always the same. These guys preach teamwork, and that's the reason we did it. Football is the ultimate team game. It wasn't just the offense. It wasn't just the defense. It was everything. So I really recommend it. It was a good book, and he'd done some other ones. He was inspired to do this book by a book he wrote for the Stanley Cup. And he even says how he thinks that the NFL should also do something like that. They should get to take the trophy home for a day over the summer and get to do whatever they want, just like the NHLers get to do. A little bit on Bernstein. He is a diehard Vikings fan. He does not hide his feelings about his homerism. It's a very interesting theory on why the Vikings are 0-4 in the Super Bowl and how he roots for the Buffalo Bills and the Denver Broncos to get to a Super Bowl just so they can lose. So he no longer has to deal with the fact that his Vikings are tied for the most losses in Super Bowl history. The Vikings were the last team to win the NFL trophy, the one that went before the merger was official. So the Vikings were that last team. No one knows where it is. No one knows what happened to that trophy. But since that time, they're 0-4. So they were the last team to get the NFL championship trophy before it became the AFL-NFL merger Super Bowl. So it's a little interesting because it's a curse you don't hear about it. He compared it to the curse of M. Bambino and everything else. So very interesting. Again, it's a very good book. I'd like to thank the guys from Triumph Books. They've given me so many books to read. And again, Rasiing Lombardi, Ross Bernstein. One more thing, because I forgot, I didn't mention the Moose Johnson part. Moose Johnson wrote his intro as well, Strahan. And an interesting thing, he talked about how they won 3 championships in 4 years. You would honestly think, reading what he had to say, that Jimmy Johnson coached all 3 teams, when he did not. He just makes no mention of Barry Switzer whatsoever, which is actually pretty funny. I could not stop laughing during his introduction I'm like, really? Wow, he didn't mention Barry Switzer. All Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson lead that found work. It was Jimmy Johnson's team. I mean, the only thing he didn't do was just give Jimmy Johnson a 3rd Super Bowl. So, I mean, basically, like I said, everyone's covered. We got Don Shula. We got Bill Walsh. Another guy, Bill Parcells, was not really represented, and neither were Belichick. We didn't see a lot of Patriots or Giants on there. So that's it. Sorry for the vacuuming noise if you guys hear it. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you guys later.